This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're going to be navigators in ships. And we're going to be navigating these waters over the waves, trying to get to a sacred island. But at the same time, Poseidon is going to be messing us up with crazy weather, blowing wind and rain and waves and trying to push us off course. Today we're talking about Odyssey, The Wrath of Poseidon, which was one of my top 10 anticipated games from Essen. It's 2 to 5 players, it's basically one versus many, and it's sort of a hidden movement type of game. Let me show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. Odyssey Wrath of Poseidon is a one versus many game where one player will hide behind this board and will be Poseidon moving these ships with wind. And on this side of the board where people can't see this board, it's an identical board, there'll be up to 4 players running these different ships. Now the navigators are trying to get at least 3 of their ships of different colors to this sacred island. If they do so before 11 rounds, they win. If not, Poseidon wins. There's actually 4 different types of boards, but the same identical board will be used for both Poseidon and the navigators. This is board A, on the back side is B, and then there is a C board, and then you flip this over and it is a D board, and there's essentially 4 different boards that you can use in the game. Now over the course of the game of the 11 rounds, Poseidon will be moving these ships, and when they move these ships, these are the exact spots that the ships actually are. Where on the navigators board, they're going to be using these ships when they know very surely where the ships are, they'll be putting them, but sometimes they won't know quite where they are. At that point, they can take their ship off and they can place markers of that ship of saying, well, he could be here, here, or here. But if he knows for sure, he could say, well, I know it's now here. And where these ships are not really exactly where they are, it's where they think they are. How round works is, first of all, the Poseidon is going to move the ships. And so what happens is, this is going to be 11 rounds long because there's 11 tiles here. This gives you a north, south, east, and west, which matches up with the board to make sure everyone's moving in the same direction. So what he can do is he can take any one of these tiles and play it in front of the player and say, I am moving the red one. So he will move this red one any direction. So he might move it south like that. Now Poseidon only moved one ship. These players each get to move their own ship, or if there's one player, he can move them all, and he can do it in any order. So this is how his board looks at the beginning, and he knows that Poseidon moved the red ship. So he knows for sure these ships did not move. So I know for sure this player's gonna go, okay, and he's gonna tell Poseidon, I'm moving the yellow ship southeast. Poseidon would then move wherever the ship truly is, southeast, because this is where it truly is. You might say I've moved the white southwest and the green northwest. So Poseidon would move it northwest, southwest, and then northwest, just like that. Now, for the red one, he knows that this player has been moved. Poseidon moved him because he moved him this round. He moved him 1 in any direction, including diagonal. So this player knows that the true spot of his ship is in one of these spots right now. And then he's going to say, I move northeast. Now, Poseidon is going to tell him what he sees. So he doesn't really know where he is, but let's say he sees, you see 2 islands. So I would look at this. If I'm truly on an island, he has to tell me exactly what I'm on. He would have to say you're on a rocky island and you're on a coastline because you're on the edge. If I'm here, he would have to say you're on a green wooded island. If I'm on a spot that's deep water, he has to say you're in deep water. After he tells you what you're on, if he was here, he would say nothing. You're not on it, you're just in regular water. But he will also tell you what you can see. And you see one spot around you like this. So if I was here right now, Poseidon would then say, you're in regular water and you can see 2 islands. Now seeing means you don't tell him what type of island. If you're on it, you say the exact type of island. If you can only see it, you tell him how many. So here he says you're in normal water and you could see 2 islands. So this player is going to look around and see, well, where could I be? I started here and he moved me to one of these, and then I moved northeast and now I can see 2 islands. So this tells me that he didn't move me here, because if he did and I moved northeast, I'd be on an island. So I know I'm not here. He could have moved me west and then I moved northeast and now I see 2 islands. So because I think I could possibly be here, I go like that. He could have moved me down here and then I went northeast and here I could see 2 islands. So now I could possibly be there. He could have moved me east and I went northeast. And then I could see 2 islands. So as you can see, you start deducing where this ship truly, really where it is. Now he could do the same for these ships, but at the beginning of the game, since he didn't move these yet, you know exactly where you are. But typically after every ship is moved, he'll tell you where you are and what you'll see. Now this will continue for the next 10 rounds. Now, again, these are the ones, so each ship here is going to be moved twice. Now these black ones are special. There's 3 of them. The only rule is you can't play 2 of these in a row, but when you play him, he moves all 4 ships. So this means that each ship over the course of the game is going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So let's say he moves one of these black ones. He's going to come up to his board. We now know that the ship actually truly, really is here. Okay, so now let's say he's going to move this one here, this one here, this one here, and he's going to move this one here. Now, the navigators are going to move all 4 ships. Here's where it gets tough, because right now, since he's moved all 4, he doesn't know where any of these are. So, just like this player did last time, where he wasn't sure where he was and he has to deduce, he's now going to have to do this for all 4 ships. So there's a good chance that he might not know the exact point of any of these ships at the end of this turn, but he might be able to deduce exactly where he is depending on where he moves and where Poseidon had just moved him. So you would do the same thing that you just did for the ships, but for all 4 ships. So essentially every round Poseidon is moving 1 or more ships if he plays this, and then you're moving all 4 ships, and then they're telling you where you are and you're deducing it, and you're trying to get 3 of them here. Once a player goes here, this ship can no longer be moved. And he says you're on basically the sacred island. If you're next to this, he just calls this an island. Sometimes you could be next to a ship, so this green ship could be here, and he says, well, you're in regular water. You can see 2 islands and a ship. Sometimes he might say, so you can see ships and things like that. That's the whole game. Once all these 11 rounds are over, because he's moved all the ships with those tiles, if no more than 2 got to the sacred island, then Poseidon wins. If not, the navigators win. There's also 4 different variants you can use, 2 to make it easier for the navigators and 2 to make it easier for Poseidon. These monsters, you can use 1 or both of them. This is the Kraken and Leviathan. They are used like storm tiles. So on this, he basically will put this storm tile, this monster out there, and he will say which color ship is not, the navigators can't move this turn. So you might say, well, you can't move yellow. The other player would move all the ships except yellow, and then Poseidon would tell them where everyone is. Now, this makes it easier for the navigators, because if you're using both of these, the game ends after all the tiles. So essentially you're getting 2 more rounds to move all the other ships. Another way to make it easier for navigators is using 1 or 2 of the different lighthouses. They will pick a spot that's not, they could be on an island or sea space. It just can't be on the starting island or around the starting island or the sacred island or around the sacred island. But they could put it here and here, let's just say, and then these 2 have passed to Poseidon. He puts them in the same spot so he knows where these are. Now, if a boat is here, Poseidon must say, you see an orange lighthouse, or you are in deep waters and you see a white lighthouse. You are on a white lighthouse. So this just gives them more information about where they're at. Now, to make it easier for Poseidon, he can add 1 or 2 of these maelstrom, looks like whirlpool tiles. They just can't be on or around the sacred island or starting islands. Now, if a player moves himself into one of these, he gives him the normal, he tells him that he's on one of those, what he can see, and then Poseidon will move him 1 space away just as if it were a storm. Now, Poseidon can't move him in there with a storm and make this happen. It's only if the navigators move in there, basically they can say it. So he could be here and he could say, well, you see 2 islands and a maelstrom. And so they want to be careful, because if they move themselves into here, then Poseidon can move them away. And one last thing to make it easier for Poseidon, he can add 2 fogs. And if a ship is in a fog, he has to say you're in a fog. Or if he's next to it, he has to say you can see fog. But if a ship is in a fog and another ship's next to it, what the fog does is he now does not see the ship. He could say, if this green ship was here, he would say, you see an island. That's it. Normally he would see a ship as well, because it's in the fog you don't. One last thing also in the game, if you're in deep waters, you tell him you're in deep waters. If you're not in deep waters, you don't say you see deep waters. That's it. Now, if you've watched my videos before, the reason why this made my top 10 of Essen anticipation lists was because I love hidden movement games, and especially if they're coming out, they're not the same old person chasing some other people. This is a ship doing something different, and I like that people trying to take different takes on the hidden movement genre. I typically like these types of games best with 2 players. I like being able to just sit there and deduce on my own what's going on the other side. And I think they move quickly, the fastest that way. This is a quick one. It's 30 minutes or less, I'd say. The box might say more, but it's really about 30 minutes. Now, the gameplay itself, it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. If you're looking for sort of a simpler, more streamlined version of a hidden movement one, this is one that you might want to check out. I liked how quick it was, liked how streamlined it was, but I did have some issues with the game. First being that there's 11 rounds, and each ship is going to get moved 5 times. Plus, each ship starts exactly 6 spots from where it needs to get. So if you are always moving your ships diagonal or closer to the Sacred Island, and Poseidon's always moving them away from that, essentially you have one move that you can screw up and get lost and not know where you are. And if you do that for more than one move and not get back on track, there's no way you're going to win the game. I think too many times when you're Poseidon, you're always just moving them away, and too much as the navigator, you're just trying to move that person in the general direction of there. There's not enough time to be playing a lot of cat and mouse here. It's really direct. And I felt like it was a little constricting and not as free and as open as I would have liked. I found the game to be, after playing both sides many times, the navigators have it a lot harder than Poseidon does. Poseidon's won almost every time we've played this game without any of the variants. However, I like how they give you 2 variants on either side to be able to try to balance it out. I will almost always play with the monsters and the lighthouses to make it easier for the navigators because it gives you more rounds. And it gives you a little more of that freedom to be able to move around. Because Poseidon's looking at the board and he's trying to say, how can I move this person so they get lost? And most of the time you can do that while moving them away. Sometimes you might want to say, well, I'll bluff it, I'll move them towards it, and maybe that will screw them up. But in the end, it didn't end up really turning out that way. So as I like the idea, I like the components, I like how it's quick and easy and streamlined, but in the end, I didn't feel like this one brought enough new to the genre and gave me enough flexibility and freedom to really do the good cat and mouse. It felt like your moves were almost already sort of planned in advance which way in general you just have to go. And sure, there's some deduction in trying to figure out where he moved me to, but in the general sense, you kind of know where you are a little bit because everyone's either going to move your way or moving towards. There just wasn't enough freedom, enough really time to get lost into that space and really try to figure out, what's going on. It was a little, almost like the game sort of played itself a little bit in that respect, especially from the Poseidon side. So it's okay. I'm not going to recommend it to everybody. I'd say try this one before you buy it, but it is a good sort of streamlined, quick version of a hidden movement game, and that's Odyssey, Wrath of Poseidon.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.